Every second, every hour, every day brings us closer to that long-awaited and much-discussed day of December 21, 2012. Will that day bring the end of the world? You'll find out in part 2 of 2012 and the end of the world on His Voice Today. Welcome back to part 2 of 2012 and the end of the world. In our last program, we discussed what just about everybody knows, and that is that this year is a year that a lot of people wonder, will this be the year of the end of the world? Not only are there natural disasters and economic crisis and terrorist attacks and wars going on around the planet and all kinds of just sick, terrible things, people are also speculating about the Mayan calendar, about the long count calendar coming to an end on December 21, and there's just a lot of buzz. The buzz is on the internet, the buzz is in the movies, the buzz is in documentaries. There's fiction books, nonfiction books. It's really a global phenomena that people are wondering, is this the year of the end of the world? Sony Pictures has produced a frightening movie taking advantage of the interest, the apocalyptic concerns of this generation. And in this movie, it's simply called 2012. It talks about what Hollywood thinks might happen if this really is the year of the end. The earth shakes and quakes, mountains sink, islands disappear, asteroids hit the planet, tidal waves wash over populated cities, devastating everything in their path. And a lot of people have watched this movie, and this has just created more fear and misgivings about the possibility that this really could be it. This could be the final year of human history. I've mentioned in the previous program that the History Channel has gotten into the act. They have produced at least 3 documentaries. One of them is called 2012 Doomsday, and they build their case. They are promoters of December 21 being a very significant day. They build their case from a lot of ancient sources, from the Greeks, the Romans, the Chinese, Nostradamus, Merlin. The list just goes on and on. And their idea is that there really could be something to these theories, that we really could be approaching the final cataclysmic moment that will be referred to as the end of the age. In our last program, we discussed how on His Voice Today, our deepest conviction is that we can't look to the internet, we can't look to the Mayans, we can't look to all kinds of supposed scholars and speculators and prognosticators about such cosmic matters as the end of the world. We need to look at the Bible, at God's book. We also talked about how at the center of God's book is Jesus Christ, and Jesus Himself is the one that we should look to. And He was asked in Matthew chapter 24 by His disciples, what would be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world? So the disciples wanted to know about the end of the world, and Jesus gave His response in Matthew 24, and He did speak of the end numerous times. He talked about signs that would be happening on earth, and when those signs have reached their conclusion, their fulfillment, in verse 14, Jesus said, "And then the end shall come." And this proves that Jesus Christ Himself did believe that there would be someday a final global apocalyptic conclusion to human history. Jesus believed in the end, and I do too. But the question is, well, when is the end? Is it going to be 2012? Is it going to be December 21? That's what we hope to find out in this special program, Part 2. If you have a Bible, I don't know if you do or not, but if you do, I invite you to turn to the book of Luke, chapter 21. Luke 21 parallels Matthew 24. And it gives a series of signs, of things that would be indicators, road signs that we are getting closer to the big day. Someday it will come. And let's see what Jesus said. Let's take a look. Luke chapter 21, verse 25. Jesus said, "There shall be signs, signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars." Signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. Now, I don't claim to know exactly everything that Jesus means by this statement, but I do know that in the last few years we've seen bizarre weather patterns which could be considered as signs. We have a video linked on our website on hisvoicetoday.com that's called 14 Days of Cataclysm in August of 2012. And it just talked about the first 2 weeks of August and all of the horrific things that were happening around the world, especially connected to weather patterns. Snow in August in South Africa, the conclusion of 6 months of awful drought in America that was breaking all records. And weather patterns are definitely, they're doing strange things, things that haven't happened, at least to this magnitude, and with the bizarre things that we're seeing, like we're seeing right now. Jesus said there would be signs in the sun. And again, I don't claim to know everything that Jesus meant by that, but I do know that there's a lot of concern, especially in the last couple of years. Just recently, I don't remember this concern when I was in high school many years ago, in the 70s, but right now there's a lot of talk about solar storms, about flares coming from the sun and bursts of power coming down to the earth and hitting this planet and possibly doing tremendous damage. Here's an article that appeared on the internet, space.com, and it says, U.S. must take space storm threat seriously, experts warn. I remember browsing on the internet not too long ago, and I saw this headline. It came right on yahoo.com. There was a picture front and center of a potential solar storm, and this is the headline. This is what it says. Sun unleashes massive solar eruptions. The sun fires off huge flares that may affect power grids and satellite communications. The concern is that someday there will be a burst of power that will come down from the sky, and it could catapult our world back into the dark ages by knocking out computers, knocking out satellite systems, knocking out the internet. And I know that NASA's concerned about this. A lot of solar experts are concerned about this. And as I look at my Bible, where Jesus said there would be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and I look at the concerns these days about the sun doing strange things and all the weather patterns that are becoming increasingly bizarre on this planet, I can't help but be impressed that Jesus did predict that there would be signs and that strange things would be going on up there and down here as we get closer to the big day. Back to Luke 21, Jesus continued in verse 25, not only would there be signs up there, but he said, upon the earth there would be distress of nations with perplexity. Distress of nations. If you think about that word, distress, that sounds a lot like a word that we use all the time. And the word is, just take the D and the I off, and it's stress, stress of nations. If you go on the internet and Google the word stress, you will be amazed at how many different things you'll find connected to stress. You'll find stress tests, stress relief, stress seminars, stress management, stress disorders, stress institutes, and techniques for lowering stress. National Geographic recently came out with a documentary, and it's called Killer Stress, a National Geographic special, Portrait of a Killer. This documentary just talks about the effects of stress upon the human body. And I think we all know that we're under stress. I don't think there's any of us that has no stress. Sometimes I'm under a lot of stress. That's why I drink a lot of water. I do a lot of walking. I jog. I try to work out. I try to exercise. I try to take care of myself because we live in a stressful world, and I don't want to be brought down by the diseases that can result in stress. Like never before, we are the stressed out generation. If you just look at the economy and you look at the natural disasters, the disasters that are hitting and taking so many lives, you look at the concerns about the future, everything is uncertain. People don't know what's coming. People are thinking about 2012, the end of the world, all of the diseases that are growing in the Western world and around the world. And it is safe to say that this generation, like never before, is under stress and strain. And to me, this fits in perfectly with what Jesus Christ said. He said, upon the earth there would be distress of nations. Now, he said that 2,000 years ago, but everything that Jesus says is just right on target. He is extremely accurate in his predictions, and it gives us great confidence that the Bible is true and that what Jesus says is right on. Upon the earth, distress of nations. Now, there's another little phrase that Jesus uses after that, not just distress of nations, but he said distress of nations with perplexity. With perplexity. That is a very interesting word. If you do some homework and look up the Greek word underlying the English word for perplexity, what it basically means is with no way out, with no solutions. And doesn't that sound perfectly like our world today? We don't really have any solutions to mass starvation. We don't have any solutions really to the threat of terrorism, to the economy, to the diseases that are just ruining thousands and millions and billions of lives on this planet. The healthcare crisis, the list just goes on and on. The problems that are facing humanity in this world really have no solution. Our government can't solve the problem, whether there's a Republican or a Democrat in the White House. Whatever your opinion is of the different parties, the fact is that no president can really solve the problems of this earth because they just can't be solved. And Jesus said that upon the earth there would be distress of nations with perplexity, which means with no way out. And that is a perfect description of life on earth right now. Jesus' words, once again, are extremely accurate and powerful. Now, as we keep reading, there's a lot more. It's amazing how packed these few sentences are with relevant truth for us today. Jesus said again in verse 25, Luke 21:25, there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity. And then he said, the sea and the waves would be roaring. The sea and the waves roaring. Years ago, as I looked at this prophecy, and I've been studying my Bible for 33 years, I used to think that this phrase, the sea and the waves roaring, applied just to the sea of humanity. The waves of human passion and human influence would just be roaring around the world. That's what I used to think, until December hit 2004. The date was December 26th, and there was a 9.0 earthquake that hit out in the Indian Ocean. And as a result of this powerful wave worked its way toward the shore. And when the wave finally hit, the statistics are somewhere around 300,000 people lost their lives as a result of that wave, the sea and the waves roaring. And then on March 11, 2011, another killer earthquake hit off the coast of Japan. And it created another tsunami. And when the dust settled, 15,000 people were dead. 3 nuclear reactors were crippled, and planet Earth itself shifted on its axis. And we still haven't completely solved the nuclear threat that's coming out of Japan from those crippled reactors. And again, I look at that, 2004, 2011, and that's not the end. And I think about all of the people that are studying tsunamis, people that are studying earthquakes, seismologists, and those that are ready to give the quick message, to sound the alarm, to sound the alert to the coastal regions whenever there's any kind of a serious threat of the sea and the waves roaring. And I look at my Bible, I look at world events, and to me they just fit like a lock and a key. There's no doubt in my mind that the things that Jesus said, the sea and the waves roaring, distress upon the earth, signs up there, bizarre weather patterns, that they all fit, that these things are actually happening right now. Bible prophecy is being fulfilled in front of our eyes.
The millennium. Will it be 1,000 years of peace on earth, the age of Aquarius, or something totally different? Find out amazing facts about this often misunderstood topic of the Bible in today's free offer by Steve Wohlberg, The Millennium. Order your free booklet today by calling 1-800-782-4253. You can also write to us at Whitehorse Media, P.O. Box 1139, Newport, Washington, 99156.
There's more. If we continue on, in verse 26, Jesus continued, and he said that men's hearts would be failing them for fear. Now, I don't know, again, I'm not a prophet, and I don't claim to know all of the depth of what Jesus actually meant when he said this, but I do know that the number one cause of death, at least in developed countries, is heart disease. Hearts are failing all around. I also know from the little bit of the study of the body that I've done that fear and stress can raise blood cholesterol levels and contribute to cardiovascular disease, heart disease, stroke. Jesus said men's hearts would be failing them for fear, and especially, he said, for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth. Looking after those things that are coming upon the earth. Now, if you just think about that, really, there has never been a generation that I'm aware of in the history of this world that has ever had the capacity, like we do right now because of technology, to literally look at the things which are coming upon the earth. I remember when the Japan earthquake hit in 2011. I remember watching Fox News, and I saw the anchor, and he was discussing the earthquake. He talked about the nuclear reactors that had been crippled. He talked about a tsunami at that point. They didn't really know how much damage it was going to do and how it was working its way across the Pacific Ocean. And then he bounced over to the Middle East, and then he bounced over somewhere else. And he was just going from crisis to crisis like he had never seen before. And at one point, he looked at the viewers through the camera, and he said, "I've never seen anything like this before in all my days." In all my days. Jesus said that people would be looking at the things that are coming upon the earth, and we've never been able to do that. Like this generation, there's something happening around the world. Many times this is recorded by a video or a cell phone and put up on YouTube, and people can watch it quickly. If an asteroid were to approach planet Earth, people could watch the images real time. People can see the wars, they can see the turmoil, they can see disasters, they can see things that are coming upon the earth because of the news networks and because of technology like never before in the history of this world. And as I look at what's going on, and I look at what Jesus said, that hearts would be failing them. People are scared when they see these things happening. Hearts would be failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth, for the powers of heaven will be shaken. There's no doubt in my mind that we are the looking generation, and that everything that Jesus predicted is happening right now. We can see the signs around us. We can see distress upon the earth. We can see perplexity, nations and governments that don't really have permanent answers to the problems facing the planet. We can see hearts failing all around us, heart disease, all kinds of diseases. We can see people looking at the things which are coming upon the earth. And these are the truths that Jesus Christ predicted would be taking place prior to the big day. And what will happen next? What is the big day going to be like? If we go down to verse 27, the very next verse, right after Jesus said people would be looking at the things which are coming upon the earth, notice what he says. Verse 27 says, and then, after they've been looking at all these things on the planet, he said, and then shall they see something else. Then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and with great glory. Wow. As I look at verse 25 and 26, these things are happening right now. And as I look at verse 27, I know that this verse is on the horizon. If someone predicted that 10 things would happen and 9 of those 10 have happened perfectly, wouldn't you have confidence that the 10th one would take place as well? I do. And that's my confidence in Jesus Christ. He said it's going to happen, and I know it will. He said, one of these days, then shall the end come. And he describes what the end will be like in verse 27. And don't miss this point. In verse 27, the end is described by Jesus Christ as the day of his return. the day of his return, when he comes in the clouds with power and with great glory. I've watched many History Channel documentaries. I've been on the History Channel a number of times. They've invited me to participate in some of their documentaries dealing with apocalyptic themes in the book of Revelation. And as I've watched with interest their productions dealing with 2012, I've noticed that they have often interviewed what you might call rugged survivalists to find out from them what they're doing to prepare for the end. And as I've watched these different people interviewed on the History Channel, a number of them have talked about how they have elaborate getaways and hideouts. Others talk about their stockpiling food and weapons. And others have talked about the need for gold and guns. And I've thought about this, it's gold, guns, and getaways that many people are thinking this is how we can prepare for the end. This is what we need. National Geographic has also come out with a television series called Doomsday Preppers. And in that series, they say it's all going to hit the fan. Here's a headline, it's all going to hit the fan. And it's only the end of the world for the people who are not prepared. And basically what they're doing is they are showcasing individuals and their elaborate preparations for some kind of global meltdown so they can hopefully survive the apocalypse and get through on the other side. But as I look at that program, and I think about my Bible, and I think about what Jesus said, that the end of the world is going to be the result of his coming, then it's very clear to me that the History Channel and National Geographic and the documentaries and the programs and the rugged survivalists are often missing something big. And what they're missing is the golden key. It's not guns and gold and getaways. It's God. It's God that is going to prepare us for the end. Back to Matthew 24, verse 14, we read this verse earlier. Jesus listed as one of the final signs. He said, and then the end will come after the gospel of the kingdom is preached to all the world as a witness to all nations. And then the end will come. The word gospel means good news. And so Jesus was basically saying that once the good news of my love and my cross and what I've done for humanity gets preached to the world, then the end is going to come. And that tells me that the way to prepare for the end is to know the one that's coming in the clouds. It's to know the one who died on the cross. It's to know the one who offers us good news. It's Jesus that's going to bring about the end of the world. And if we're going to be ready for the end of the world, we need to know him. We need to know Jesus Christ. He is the only one that's going to get us through on the other side. Now, what about the date December 21? Will he come on that day? Back to Matthew 24, let me share just a simple scripture, Matthew chapter 24, about the day when he comes. A lot of people speculate, the 21st. In Matthew 24, verse 33, he says, likewise, when these things shall happen, you will know that it is near, even at the doors. We can know it's close. But then in verse 36, he says, of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Jesus clarifies of that day and hour, no one knows. Nobody will know the exact day that he comes. And it doesn't make sense to me that if the whole world is speculating about December 21, 2012, and everyone's thinking about it, that that's going to be the day when he comes. Personally, based upon this verse, that nobody knows the day or the hour. I don't think the Mayans knew. I don't think Merlin or Nostradamus or the History Channel or anybody knows. I think this is all just mass speculation. But to me personally, December 21 is going to be a big day. It's going to be a big day for our family, for my family, for the Wohlberg family. And I'll tell you the simple reason, and that is because on December 21, 2012, my little girl, who is now 4 years old, will turn 5, because that is the day when she was born. And so to the Wohlberg family, December 21, 2012 has great significance, and that is because that is little Abigail Rose Wohlberg's birthday. But that's it. That's the only significance that I can see. And as I see in my Bible very, very clearly, Jesus Christ said, of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. It is dangerous, it is perilous to set a day for the end of the world, for the Lord's coming. Many people have tried to do this, and so far they've all failed. One danger in date setting is that, let's say somebody predicts the date is going to be 6 months from now. Then people think, oh great, I've got 6 months to do what I want, and then right before that day comes, then I'll get right with God. And people who have that attitude, who knows, you could die tomorrow. And if you're not ready for the day of your death, then you're not ready for eternity. And so people can put off the coming of the Lord. And then the other danger is that, let's say December 22nd happens, which I believe firmly that it will. I think we will see December 22nd, 2012. And if that day comes, a lot of people are going to be saying, now I got lots of time, don't need to worry about the end of the world because it's not going to happen for a long time. Just like Y2K, people thought that when the year 2000 kicked in, this was going to be a big crisis, and then when it didn't happen, everybody relaxed and thought, oh good, no problems, and then within a few short months, the stock market just basically collapsed and went down, and people lost all kinds of money. So it's dangerous to speculate on what day the Lord is going to come, what day will be the end of the world. The important thing is for us to be ready. Jesus Christ also said in Matthew chapter 24, verse 44, Jesus said very clearly, he said, therefore be ye also ready. Be ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man is going to come. Jesus said he's coming at a time when we don't expect it, when the world doesn't expect it. When the flood hit in Noah's day, people weren't expecting it. And when the final end of the world comes, the vast majority of this planet will not be ready. But Jesus wants to have a people who are ready. He wants you to be ready. He wants me to be ready. And we can be ready through the good news, the gospel, that he loves us, he died on the cross for us, he rose from the dead, he went to heaven, and he's going to come back to take those that love him and choose to follow him and want to live for him daily. They will be the ones that will be prepared for the end of the world. So let's not speculate. Let's stick to Jesus and the Bible. Be ready. For in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man is coming. You've just heard his voice today.
We hope you've enjoyed this timely message from Pastor Steve Wohlberg, and we want you to know that Whitehorse Media is deeply committed to bringing you many more simple messages straight from the Bible, designed to educate the mind, inspire the heart, and help bring our viewers and their families closer to God. To learn more about Whitehorse Media or to watch more of Pastor Steve's television programs online, including his powerful new series of 2-minute talks, visit hisvoicetoday.com. That's hisvoicetoday.com. If you have any prayer requests, you can email them to us at prayerrequests@hisvoicetoday.com. If you would like a free copy of Steve Wohlberg's audio CD, Behold a White Horse, you can call us at 1-800-78-BIBLE. That's 1-800-78-BIBLE. We hope you will join us next time for another inspiring His Voice Today presentation with Steve Wohlberg. Until then, keep the faith.